Hello and welcome to Citizens Forum. This is being filmed on Wednesday, November the 26th in the beautiful Memorial Arena in Victoria. I'd like to thank our humorous volunteer crew and the Shaw staff that makes it all happen. Our guest, Walter's away, so the first Walter and Jack show is gone. Our guest in the first segment is Mike Sadowy.
That's right.
And Mike, you are a philosopher accountant.
That's right.
And we're going to
But
be
I'm not
talking about...
philosophizing about counting. You could ask me. Yes. So,
What are we going to talk about?
well, recently we've had a false flag going on in what we call a false flag in Canada, in the apartment buildings and all that stuff. And we now had this whole Ferguson thing going on in the last couple of days. So it's so fresh and new, I thought that's what I'd like to talk about. So we can link into our own false flag issues.
And maybe we can go back to our own false flag.
And this thing about on Ferguson. So 2 or 3 days ago, all these buildings burnt down. It was 16 buildings, I think, something like that. 15, 16 burnt to the ground, looting, all that kind of stuff going on, right? Now here's the thing that says that they think the National Guard was told to stand down. And so as I was listening through the news, sure enough, the governor insisted that, I was calling the government to let the National Guard in and all that stuff, let them come in. No response. The mayor of Ferguson kept calling and calling, no response. Where are the National Guard? Now, so how did they do that? How did they know for weeks that something was going to happen? They talked every day about something was going to happen.
And they were building it up. The media seemed to be
because
building
they
the
want
anger.
this. Yes. Yeah. And so now how do they do it? If we sort of look at it, they had surrounded the whole sort of city or area. They had all these National Guards all going to these hotels all around the area. So in other words, they're all there already. Nobody coming in from anywhere. They were there a week ahead because it was reported. They had seen these characters. All right, so there's like 2,200 National Guards. So now on the day of this, when the fire broke out and all that whole rioting went a couple of days ago, well, where are they? They're not there. They've been told to stand down so that they can let the looters, the rioters do everything they want, destroy everything. See? And then later on say it's all their fault. The next day, they bring in all the National Guard and everything's quiet. Well, what happened here? So they segue from town burning down, and then they segue to, it's all calm now. The National Guard's taking care of it. You see, so that's how the scene goes.
Right, right.
Now they don't mention, hey, where's the National Guard? They don't say nothing on that corporate media. So what they do say is, at the way at the tail end, he says, on the second day, we brought in 2,200 National Guard. But on the first day, there was only 700, and all told us to stand down. So I want to see if people can reason out that while all this fire was going on, firemen had gone to take care of it, but they're being shot at. There's news people there, and they're hearing the shots. They're shooting at the truck. They never hit anybody, but they're shooting and firing lots and lots of bullets. There are hundreds of thousands of bullets shot that night. Now, we've got audio and visual of all that. So all of that was done. Yet, so where's the National Guard? They got night vision. They got satellites. They can see who's shooting. They can see who's shooting a rifle 2 miles away from here. Do they do anything about it? They let it all go. And just like on 9/11, what you saw was blue skies, and where's the jets? Where's everything, So that's the standout mode, and then they intercept it, and then all you get up left thinking while they deal with this is that there was a big fire, and then there's the National Guard, and everything's quiet. That's all you get as they put it together. Now, to link that back into in our false flag here locally.
Locally, you mean
in Ottawa?
In Ottawa, yeah.
So,
now, I think, what I would say about that is I wouldn't say that it was a false flag, which means an attack.
Someone got to say it.
Yeah, lots of people are saying it.
Okay.
But I will say that certainly we have to factor that into the equation because it certainly could have been. These things happen, these things are done.
And in the same way that they built up this Ferguson thing, they built up this lone gunman thing. Because for 2 weeks, I think I was telling you before, I was watching, and every day, oh, we're afraid there was going to be a lone gunman, or we're all afraid there was going to be a lone gunman. Even the States was saying that.
So this
and sure
was
enough,
on
that happened, and nobody's saying about anything about a lone gunman again since that event happened. Why? Aren't there lone gunmen here today, right now? I mean, was it just the one then in all of the universe? I mean, well, no more words about that. But that build-up, that get you used to it, what they call it, climatizing you, getting you acquainted for that. Then when it happens, oh, I knew that. Yeah, you may knew it, but they did it on purpose, you see. And so there's a lot of things like that to talk about. That's why I wanted to bring up it was fresh. So I'm going to move on.
Okay. I'd just like to say one thing about Ferguson,
yes,
which is that the black people in the United States have a real reason to be angry about the way they're treated by the police.
But
it's like nothing is being done to solve the problem by the people who run the United States. They're not solving the problem. What they're doing is building up anger on both sides.
Yes.
And you have to think that what they've done in other countries is then they bring in the snipers and they start shooting people from both sides.
Exactly.
A lot of people in the United States know this, and I think the people who run the United States are even a little worried about doing it because millions of people know what they're going to do.
Well, are they worried?
Or what they may do.
We're talking about big banks. We're talking about offshore banks are running the show. You know, it doesn't matter whether you elect this government or that government. What you have is a continuity of agenda, we call it, COG. Continuity of agenda. So it don't really matter who comes in, it just keeps on going. And I think I told you this little story, which I like to tell all the time, about voting. and that was the GST. As you know, Jack, I never voted once in my life. But I thought this one time, I say, I may be wrong, I just might be, that the people may speak and it might happen. Well, okay, the GST. I don't remember if you remember the hate that was on here for that GST when that came in. The people, the whole Canada hated it. Well, what happened? Kretchen comes in, he gets on camera, he says, GST, she gone, like that. She's gone. Oh, you know, Kretchen, yeah, you're in, you see?
So even you voted?
No. I was watching first. I want to see what's going to happen here, buddy. So he gets in just the very next day almost. I never said that. So what do you mean you never said that? Oh, I said she's gone. If I could possibly help it, blah, 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 blah. All that lawyer talk. It never went. That's what I mean by continuity of agenda. You know, so that's the banksters. They're all bought and paid for. They serve their masters and not us. And so this idea of the people spoke, yeah, you spoke, they know damn well you're angry and you got voted because we don't want that GST. Well, why is it here? It never left, not even 1 second. So I think when you sort of get the idea that's going on, the people on top aren't really scared because they're really cocky. You know, they're running around, you know, doing all kinds of things. For instance, putting fluoride in your water. Now here in Victoria, we're lucky. We go, but still not. We still got the chloride, not fluoride, but this chloride, which is not chlorine because it doesn't evaporate like it's supposed to. Anyway, that's bad for you. But like in Northern Ontario, where I originally came from, I was in grade 5 when they brought the fluoride in with all the hoopla about how great it is for your teeth. See? Well, everybody knows from Nazi times that it dumbs you down. You lose about 10 points of IQ, you are docile, and you won't get angry. That's what fluoride does. Look it up. Ritalin is 85% or more fluoride. That's what dumbs you down, slows you down, you see? That's what they give you in concentration camps, so you'd shut up and not get hostile. How do we get sucked in every time? How? Do these same, you know, certified known liars again lie to you and you go for it again? You know, I did not have sex with that woman, I tell you. You know, he goes to, and Clinton goes on court and he, under oath, swears he never had sex with that woman, right? And he gets into his lawyer talk, but he moved on, he kept on going, right? Everybody knew he lied, but that's the way it is. So, you know, how these certified known liars keep to do that? Now, thing is, they're organized. So they've got Agenda 21. You're aware of Agenda 21?
Only by name. I've heard of it.
Man.
I don't know what
Well,
it is.
What it is to put us all into poverty. We're all going to live in a dumpster, a nice, a nice little house, and pay 4 times the rent that you're paying now, you see. So that's what they like, you see. They get the rest of the land, and you get the dumpster. They stack you up like chickens in cities, you see, that kind of thing. And the Agenda 21's in every city all around the world. And it's all about, they just want the kings and the peasants. They don't want this middle class, and that's what we're experiencing. And that's how they're doing it, with these sneaky little things that they bring in. So how do they suck us in for fluoride? How do they suck you in with cancer-causing vaccines? You know, why do you march up there and say, you want a shot in the head? Would you like a shot in the arm? And look, that brings me to something else. With our nurses here on December the 1st, they're going to have to take shots or wear masks. You're aware of that? That new stupid law about our non-bully leader here. What's her name again? You know, she wears a pink ribbon. She says, I'm not a bully. But as soon as she gets elected, she dumps all the teachers, sucks dry their bank accounts for 2 months, and then they make money by not having teachers to work, right? Isn't that bullying? I mean, all she's done is bully. And you go running around with this pink little thing, you know, come on, we're against bullying. Whatever they say, that's actually what they're doing. You know, I'm against bullying? No, you're not. I mean, you know, the whole thing's a bully pulpit, right? So, you know, so why?
Why do we? Because we're watching it happen right now with ISIS.
That's right. So you got you've got Al Qaeda. Everybody heard about Al Qaeda, so everybody was getting smart. So you know what they do? They change the name. They said, "Oh, it's ISIS." No, it's ISIL. And then they get confused. Everybody, is it ISIL? Is it ISIS? You know, baloney. It's all the same crap. It's all the same corporate. You know, the banksters that are arranging all of this stuff. You know, you got your hitmen and all that stuff for that. So we're being sucked in that way.
Okay,
you know.
So what can we do? Here we are. It's late innings, that's for sure. The entire planet is at risk, and
all nuclear plants are leaking. They're doing nothing about it. Every nuclear plant, every one of them, and they're all in fault lines. You know, because now ask yourself. Certified known liars, did they not know what they were doing, or did they know what they're doing? Are these nuclear bombs just sitting around there waiting for whatever, right? Now you ask about what you're doing. Well, you get to be a bit of a problem here, because if I say, you know, if you're, say this thing that they're putting that pipeline through, right, in
Burnaby?
In Burnaby there.
Yeah.
Okay, those people there, they're in opposition to civil authority and established leadership. But then so are you. You emailed me and you want answers about this. How dare these corporations push regular, ordinary people around? They don't want the stupid thing there, so get the hell out, right? Everybody knows that. These guys won't stop, right? But the trouble with that, this opposition to civil authority or established leadership, which is our government, you know, our illustrious, what's her name again? What is her name? Her name shall not be said. The point is, you know what word describes that? An insurgent. That is the definition of an insurgent. I looked it up because I was talking to you about it. It means if we do anything, we can officially be called insurgents just like everybody else. And, you know, so you start fighting, try to fight that, but you're going to get labeled these kind of words by the establishment, by the powers that be.
And we know what they do to insurgents.
And we know what they do to insurgents. So they got all these words on their side, you know, and so one of the troubles is that they're organized. They are terribly organized.
And we are very
Not only
disorganized.
that, these officials that get up into the status, say like City Hall even, all that, a lot of them take courses of how to deal with you on any, you know, how to not to talk to you if I don't want to, how to whatever. So as they get higher and higher up the echelons, they end up getting special courses how to deal with the public, right? While we ourselves are just non-organized and it doesn't have any.
You mean how to deal with the public on behalf of the corporations?
For the corporation, never for you. It's never for you, right? So they, you know.
So we have to take back our democracy and start.
But how when you're not organized? You see, they're more organized and they have endless money.
Yeah.
You see, because they print it. There's a press. You print it, and that's it. That's all they've been doing. I think it's 85 billion a month, and that's all they do is keep printing more. So
putting it in their own pockets.
and they feed it, and they always get the worst people to ride on top of us, type of thing, right? So, they use words. For instance, why would they call somebody homeless? If you think about it, or like a real estate guy, he'll say, let's buy a home. Everybody knows you can't buy a home. Nobody can buy a home. Why are you calling these people homeless? You can buy a house, and they're houseless, but they're not homeless. And they don't want you to use that word houseless, because you could do something about that. You can't do something about somebody with no home, you see? I got a home right in a dumpster here, but I'm houseless, if you know what I mean. My family and I live in a dumpster. We got a home, but I don't have a house. So they play these tricks, with these words. And so as the citizens try to take things back, they got to understand what the tricks are. What are these goofy tricks they're playing on us? And all these semantics. What was Clinton's semantic? Well, it depends what the word means. That's what he got down to 2 letters. The word is, as if he had, whether that means he had sex with Lewinsky or not. Right? He would battle that, these lawyers. Now I saw how what I'm saying is there's a formula. The people writing on top, the banksters, all those guys, they belong to organizations. They belong to secret organizations. They are ritualized. They ritualize the heart right out of them. That's the way I see it. They over and over and over again, if you keep told that it's okay to kill that guy, eventually it's okay to kill that guy. You keep being told that. It's all organized. This is by the eugenics people. I mean, I suppose they made films about them in the 30s. A eugenics, like if you had like 2 or 3 crippled children in your family or something like that, you'd be sterilized by the USA government and here, normal stuff. But how do they do this? There is a bigger picture. I can't get into it all in this short time, but
You're absolutely right, because we're out of time.
Are we out now?
We're out of time. Mike, thank you very much. To be continued, I guess.
I guess it's got to be continued. I'm just getting to the good parts.
Thanks for watching this segment of Citizens Forum. Welcome back to segment 2 of Citizens Forum. This is the Mazin and Jack show, replacing the Walter and Jack show, being filmed on Wednesday the 26th in what used to be the Memorial Arena, is now the Save on Foods Arena, which I think is a real shame that our city leaders allowed that name to be kind of taken away. And it's kind of strange too that the people who own Save on Foods would put their own name on the arena so big you can literally see it from outer space in bright green, Save on Foods, and the word memorial is kind of put into a small gray. I'm not sure that was the right thing to do. Anyways, lots of stuff happening this week. I think people are losing but fighting, and a lot of it centers around what's happening in Burnaby. Mm-hmm. I heard today that close to 100 people have been arrested now. 100 heroes. The media keeps calling them protesters. I think they're Canadian heroes, and I think we should all start calling them that. I saw, just this. This is very interesting. This is from the Georgia Strait, not reported anywhere in the corporate media. A Vancouver civil rights lawyer says it's dangerously wrong that people on Burnaby Mountain are being arrested while the courts are still evaluating the legality of Kinder Morgan's actions. In other words, it's still before the courts. The courts have not yet come to a final decision if Kinder Morgan should be able to proceed, but while the courts are in session, the police are arresting people on behalf of an American oil company, and it seems with the full support of Christy Clark and Stephen Harper. Mm-hmm. The lawyer goes on to say there is the uncontroversial right of citizens to protest, which is one of the key planks of a democracy. This is Gail Davidson, is the lawyer, and the rights of Kinder Morgan have not yet been determined. The city of Burnaby is in court. So, I mean, that is something that we should be looking at very carefully. Have we now reached a point in our downslide from any semblance of democracy that even the courts don't matter anymore? The companies and their political agents and their media just start arresting people.
It seems like the government and the police now, they are working for this corporation, the foreign corporation, instead to work for the people here who are, as you said, they're right actually to go out and protest something they don't want, or at least, as you said, the court, it's not done yet with the issue. And on the other hand, we have our mainstream media, which is another industry, giving us different kind of information. I'm not hearing anything of that on local TV. We hear more about what's happening in, like for example, the couple of days ago I was watching CTV at 6 o'clock, the local news. They cut the local news around like 6:15, I think, to bring live what's the verdict in Ferguson, in the US, about the shooting, the police shooting. And we kept hearing for 10-15 minutes a lot of talk without getting to the point, so they end up in the end cutting out of that, coming back to say this is the news for tonight. Couldn't know what is the verdict. Later we find out the verdict was it's not guilty, and the riot happened. And I'm glad that the first guest here mentioned about the issue of the National Guard existence around the city, while the media did not say anything about that.
So you mean the National Guard, as he said?
Yeah, because they were preparing for that from a while, but the media is not doing their basic job to go and question. They have a recipe ready to give it to you, and I think mostly from the government, because what we hear was always we hear the official message. We don't hear.
You know, I haven't watched a lot of TV recently, so I've missed a lot of what's happened in Ferguson. But the little bit I did see, I just got the feeling that the media was building up anger on both sides, almost as if it was trying to cause unrest. And I think that's very possible, because the people who run the United States, they know that there's a growing anger against them. And when they see that, their response is to further divide the people and cause trouble. So people will be forced to look at the trouble over here and take their eyes off the real enemy, who seem to be the corporate masters who really run the country. That's the feeling I got from watching the media. And I also noticed that there seems to be no program in place in the United States to actually solve the problem. Because the black people in the United States have a real reason to be very angry at the way they're treated. It goes on and on and on.
The poor in general,
I mean, the poor in general,
the 90% of population who are living just to keep working and to pay the bills,
the poor
while
in
the
general.
3-4% owning most everything. But there is.
So they won't solve that problem, but instead they'll try to cause trouble.
And when I come back again to the media, and when we look to there is many simple things we can question in the incident in Ferguson. For example, the overwhelming of power the police have to shoot somebody 12 times. And it's about wherever the crime it is, and in this case it was, it was really something absurd to shoot somebody 12 times, tell you that there is no value for the citizen on the street when police having all this overwhelming power. What about if it's necessary using, like for example, rubber bullet to put first concern to you? It's the well-being of that human being. But when you have all this police forces having all this power with them, it's easy then to go, and especially in environment.
It happens over and over and over again. My own take on police is that there's a lot of good police, and in the States they're under a huge amount of pressure because that country is a powder keg. I have no idea of what happened in this particular incident in Ferguson. I really don't know.
Mostly.
But solve the problem, deal with the problem. The problem is poverty and the fact that drugs are illegal, so you've created these massive drug gangs. Poverty, drug gangs, which funded literally by the government who makes the drugs illegal, but they know what the end result is going to be.
And the police and the army are not the one to solve these issues.
No, certainly not.
And
And those are the issues they've got to deal with, but they won't. And they seem to be, I mean, America is completely divided now on so many issues. It's like they're trying to destroy the country. The people who run the country are trying to destroy it because that's what they're doing.
This has been the whole American policy. It's always been on exploitation, going around the world, doing whatever they want to with their corporate and their military. So it's not strange if there is unrest in the US to have this kind of brutality coming back home, because it's not really about the human being, it's mostly about profit and money. And a good example of that, it's their policy in the Middle East, or the so-called the Middle East, where I came from. The whole border in our region there, the whole puppet state created was originally by colonial power like Britain and now the US. They are the real power who control everything there, but they managed to make that region kind of from outside the world, it's to you. They put you here in a bubble about how we have here democracy and freedom. Meanwhile, look what they have there. But if you look clearly, you will see like regimes like Saudi Arabia, for example. It's one of the most disgusting regime in considering human rights. And if the Americans really care about the human rights around the world, the first regime should be on their list, should be Saudi Arabia.
But the American, I mean, I'm not talking about the American people. I'm talking about the people who run the United States. As you said, they care about nothing except money and profit and power.
And I don't know how the life of that person, it's every life is important. The person who died in Ferguson and the whole issue, it's very important, but also equally important the over 1.5 million Iraqi died based on a lie and based on a war crimes by the US. These people have no value in Iraq or in Syria. We have a massive refugees in both countries. We have a long history of bloody wars based on the foreign intervention from Britain, France, and US in that region. People there again has no value. More important is the routes for the oil pipes or gas pipes, or how to be sure that the foreign company is easy access to go there, do whatever they want to. So this has just been happening from a long time. And I think there is a lot of anger about that, but they keep manage, as you said before, whenever there is, people are getting so dissatisfied with their government foreign policy, they throw you in a new war. And you mentioned that before many times.
Yeah, so I guess which brings us back to where we are right now. I read just within the last couple of days that Canadian officials are now discussing starting to bomb Syria. Well, bombing Syria is an act of war. That is an act of war. This is being done in complete secrecy. Nobody in Canada knows about it. I'm not even sure it's happening. I mean, I read something that seemed to be saying that, but that's the only little blurb I heard about it. How, if it's true, how can Harper and his regime put Canada into a state of war, which is not a joke, without Canadians even knowing about it? And yet that happens now over and over again. I really want to have, I think there has to be an independent investigation of what happened in Ottawa a month ago, because we have no idea of the truth. All we know is a story that's been told to us basically by the corporate media with the assistance of the RCMP. I contacted the RCMP about just 4 or 5 days ago. I don't remember the name of the office that deals with media. I said, hey, I'm media. And can you just tell me what investigations are taking place into everything that happened in Ottawa? They sent me back 2 little news clips, the most recent one dated October 26th, so a month ago. It's like there is no investigation. It happened, we've been told a story, and now it's put to bed. On the basis of that story, new laws are being passed, which our previous guest says we are insurgents, because of what people fighting the oil companies here can be called insurgents, and that's who the law is designed to deal with. So we have to be very, very careful. We're in a state where the corporations control both the government and the media. It's a very, very dangerous time for Canada, and we've got to do a better job of getting rid of them. And we're disorganized, and we've got to become organized.
Yeah, and actually we need independent investigations in many stories, not just what happened in Ottawa. Another example, what happened in Victoria, in legislation building. Do we know about the whole story there? No. If you remember the event of the story of Boston, in the same week, which CBC spent all the time talking about that story.
Was that, you mean the Boston bombing?
Boston Marathon, yeah. Which in the same day there was a drill and all
right.
These dogs and all these policemen. While they are talking about that, they managed to tell us about there is a train going from Toronto to New York, and a group who tried to plan a bomb in that train, and they caught them. And again, this story, it's an important story if it's true, but what happened to that story later?
I remember the incident. I don't have any idea.
We know that later we have more legislation about more security legislation, and we have more alienation for many communities, especially people from the Middle East or from Muslim background. Now everybody looking at them like they have an issue being loyal to this country or not. It's sad how the fear they are creating with this story, which later don't let you know anything about it.
And you can take those issues and bring it right here into town with the homelessness, the poverty, the Blue Bridge issue, which is $100 million from this small city of just Victoria, $100 million being spent for no reason. A little larger issue, the sewage treatment issue, $1 billion, again being spent, it seems, for absolutely no reason. The theft of our money, all of these things are happening. What's happening with Kinder Morgan, what's happened with Mount Poly. We Canadians have got to stop it, because it all comes down to the same 2 issues, I think, which is we don't have democracy, so us citizens are completely irrelevant, and we don't have a free press, so we basically are never, you have to search to find out what's going on, and they control so much of the message. Those are the issues that we have to deal with, and it just doesn't seem to be happening, and our whole planet and our society are threatened. Can we stop them? I mean, it's like we're in the middle of a movie or something.
Yep, and a very important step is to stop listening to our media and give them exactly the description they deserve. They are entertainment industry. They don't really work to inform us. We need to find a different route to get the real education, and it could be in a library, it could be by reading a real book, finding out the fact, thinking critically, being more organized. By one of the issues you mentioned the other day, there is 30 activists went out 2 days ago under the rain to go to protest the issue of the the pipeline. But how they did go, everybody went on their own. It would be a good idea if these 30 activists start to find out a way that to establish a new movement, establish a base, because individually we cannot do anything. Fragmenting our activity, it's not helpful. Meanwhile, the other side, it's very well organized, very well financed, and they are prepared from way ahead of us. So I think the best thing is to start a movement where people really can involve and participate in that movement. not any of these new establishment we have. And when I say movement, could be like a real political party, or the parties we have in Canada, all of them, sorry, are puppet parties. They don't really discuss the issue of the people. They don't represent the people. Some of them even use the name of a color, green. I know you have respect for the Green Party, and I respect many of the things they do, but I would like to have a party where really value people first, and of course environment, but really look to the overwhelming class of people who are really working every day just to live by, and nobody looking after them.
But in fact, they are looking after everybody else, because it's their work that really keeps the country going. You know, it's the people, the millions of people who are kind of doing the low-paid jobs that that everybody else lives off of.
And if you do these kind of jobs, in the end of the day, do you have time to think critically about a small example? I came from Syria. I have a background as a critic in theater and drama, and I'm supposed to be an expert on the issue of the East Mediterranean and a linguistic. In a really good democratic civil society, I will be more encouraged to continue in that field and be helpful to let other people know about that cultures. Because art, theater, this background I study, it's really important in a civil society. But I was pushed to know I should put all this on the side, and I had to find something like a trade. I was lucky, I mean, because I have now Walter is my boss. I am working in electrical trade as an apprentice. But tell you about, there is no really value for human creativity. There is only value for money and profit. And this is what real force in capitalist state like Canada, the US, they talk about democracy, they talk about all this civil idea, but it's come to the bottom line, it's about extracting resource, it's about getting any money they can out of this environment around us, and you are in a bubble, know nothing about what they are doing. I don't know.
Yeah, so I mean that's where we are right now. It's a remarkable situation. All of us, we find ourselves living at this pivotal time in human history when so much seems to, I mean, maybe it isn't pivotal. I mean, we've been going in a certain direction for a long time. We seem to be on the verge of certainly environmental disaster, economic disaster, quite possibly social disaster as well. I mean, am I the eternal optimist? I still think we can turn it around.
Yeah, I think we have in the last 300-400 years of this is the capitalist society and this cycle of greediness, and this is not all our human history. But again, it's not necessary in our own life. I mean, but something very important is to acknowledge the past and what happened in the past and build on that and go forward. Many issues are important for a state like Canada, for example. The native issue is the most important issue in this land, and until now, Canadian government or the establishment here in Canada did not acknowledge that properly. And I think this is one of the issues for us here, citizens or who live in this land, we need to acknowledge and work on first. And believe me, when we get that right, talking about the right of indigenous people to their land and what happened to them, so I think many other issues will start to fit and know how our greedy system led us to all these trouble.
Thank you, Mazin.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching today's Citizen Forum. Welcome back to Citizens Forum. Our guest in this segment is Bill McDonald of the Greater Victoria Light Rail Society. And we're going to be talking about rail and trams in Victoria. Bill, you just told me you've been working on this for about 30 years,
Plus,
and you haven't been that successful, even though this is the best idea in the world.
yes, things have not gone as quickly or as we thought it would happen. Back in the early 90s, we thought for sure we were going to get the first phase of a light rail system, which was going to be the Victoria Accord historic streetcar line, going from the cruise ship docks through downtown, and an undetermined endpoint at this point. I think it was around maybe Mayfair, or maybe as far as Uptown. So this is
So in
unfortunate.
in the 1990s, that looked doable.
Yes.
And I remember you did a survey at that time, just going around asking people or businesses around town.
We did a very thorough survey in 1994. We had lots of help. We had Teresa Samanis from a graduate from the University of Victoria who headed up the project. Marvelous. The results were overwhelmingly supportive of light rail transit. I mean, like 90%.
I remember.
And this is businesses and the public as well. I mean, it is the best way to go by far. If you want to enhance your city, you want to really make the downtown viable, you got to build light rail transit. There's no question about it. It's successful wherever it's been put in.
And yet, you know, so let's say here we are right now, it's 2014. You know, climate change is an oncoming disaster, plus just pollution in general. We've got to move away from the automobile. So let's look at building light rail. Now, you said the original idea was for a line starting at the cruise ship, so running through James Bay.
That's correct. The original line that the Society had put forward was going from the cruise ship docks in James Bay through downtown, either a single line up Douglas Street or a single line up Government Street, and back on either one, or both lines on one, all the way through to the first line was all the way through to the Western Communities to Langford, which is about 18 kilometers. You could have a branch line at Uptown to the ferry terminal, and then to the University of Victoria. You could run direct trains from Langford Colwood right through to the ferry terminal, or to the university, or into downtown Victoria and to the cruise ship docks, and reverse, the same thing.
When you were talking about that back in the 1990s, what was the price tag?
300 million.
Okay, and
Andy Lee did a study back in 94, and the cost was $300 million.
Now, who did the study?
Andy Lee.
And
So, yeah.
who is ND Lee?
It was a company out of Vancouver, I believe.
Consultants?
Consultants,
Okay,
yes.
so, I mean, we all know that prices go up, but let's say we could have done it for 400 million back then. And that was a line from the
That would be
cruise
the
ship
line,
docks
the
all the
initial
way
line.
out to Langford.
Correct. Yes.
Imagine if we'd have done that. And that was the NDP back then in government, the provincial government. And instead, they spent all that money. They spent the same amount of money building, fixing up the highway. And now, 20 years later, the biggest traffic problem in town is that very highway, which everybody told them about at the time. And we still don't have light rail.
Well, I lived out in the Western Communities for 33 years, and I've seen no change. It's gotten worse and worse ever since. Yeah. And it will never get fixed unless they put a proven alternative in place, which is light rail. Light rail is not going to solve everything, but it's certainly going to reduce your congestion. And when you see certain parts of the video that we put together, you can see that there's room on the roads in Europe and all the cities. With even just one lane going each direction, there's still room on the road. But here, we've only got two major corridors that funnel the traffic into Victoria, and they're plumb full. And the more roads you build, it's just going to bring more cars. That's the way it's worked. It doesn't go to the reverse. So we can't do that. We can't continue to go that way. And somehow we've got to get through to the governments that we must, if we're serious about the environment, we want to reduce greenhouse gases and all the rest of it, you have to look at going to alternative energies to move people.
Now, I've largely stopped taking the buses because I'm tired of standing and waiting. In the morning, if you're like I used to live in Saanich, and I'd take the bus in every morning, and then I switched to bicycle. But that was fine. In the morning at the rush hour, the buses are pretty fast. But in general, I find them very noisy, very bumpy, very uncomfortable, poorly lit. Somebody's always playing loud music. I've seen, you see things on the buses that it's just not that pleasant. Somebody years ago called it a loser cruiser, told me that was the name. Well, that's not how I remember public transit when I was growing up. Now, you've traveled a lot in Europe, and you say it's not really like that over there. And it's because people are more mindful.
That is the case. You don't find disturbances on the buses like you do here from time to time. People seem to be much more respectful of each other, and also the systems themselves. They take pride in their vehicles. They take pride in a system, making sure that it's efficient, that it runs well, that it's comfortable, and they have announcements before all the stops. Here we are in 2014, and we still don't have that in Victoria, and yet we're paying one of the highest prices for fares in Victoria at $2.50 a cash fare. That's not cheap.
No, that's not cheap. That's
And
absolutely not
in
cheap.
Europe, you get reasonable rates for traveling. You can get I'll give you Zurich. It costs 10 Swiss francs, which is pretty close to 10 Canadian dollars, maybe a little bit more. You get a 24-hour pass. It's good from the time you validate it to the next day. If you start at 8 o'clock in the morning, it's good to 8 o'clock the next morning. At 24 hours. And then the driver doesn't have to worry about collecting fares, because they have checkers that get on board and they check. And if you don't pay your fare, you get a ticket, or even taken
Now,
off the
where
vehicle.
was this?
In Zurich.
Yeah, they know how to do it. They know how to do it. And I mean, also in Switzerland, you don't have the poverty so that people can't afford to buy a ticket, right? I mean, they have a more balanced economy. And to me, I remember when you and others were fighting so hard back in the 90s to get light rail into Victoria. And that was one loss we had. But it's like our whole society is being treated the same way. Light rail is one example of how much better things could be, except the wrong people are running the country. And when I say the wrong people, I don't mean if you elect a different group, it's going to be any different. It's that the public doesn't have a voice. You said there was massive support for light rail.
Well, according to the survey, we did 3 surveys, but according to our last survey in 1994, the support was, around 90%. Well, that's huge. And this was we went to the downtown businesses. We went to public bus stops. We did several different places to take the survey, and it's just no contest. People want it. Businesses want it. It's got to be good. Businesses got to want it, because it's people that buy, not cars. So the more people you can bring into the city, the more vibrant the city's going to be.
Yeah. And the loss of the rail bridge, the Blue Bridge, the rail bridge next to the Blue Bridge, cut out what would probably be the cheapest route, the cheapest way of bringing trains from Langford into downtown. I mean, the rail line is still sitting there. Mm-hmm. Is there a number, a cost? Let's say the rail bridge was back. The rail bridge had never been taken out, so we still had the E&N link going right into the downtown. What would be a cost for getting a service going on that line tomorrow?
I'm not entirely sure, but I believe there's some other improvements that would have to be made, certainly in the track and the ties and what have you. But you might be looking at 20 million maybe from Langford into Victoria.
Yeah, and let's say we tripled that to 60 million, okay?
Well, then you could probably do a full service. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, And also, in my opinion, you shouldn't be running Bud cars. These are ancient cars. They should be retired.
Yeah,
We should be
of
running
course.
conventional light rail cars with one operator, and they're available. Bombardier builds them, Siemens builds them, or other companies that build them. In fact, several years ago, back in the middle 90s, Siemens offered Victoria the free use of a light rail car for 6 months, and they turned it down.
When was this? In the
middle 90s, so around 1994 or 1995.
And that car would have run,
from Langford into Victoria.
and they turned it down.
A free trial. and it was, I don't know whether it was Esquimalt now, because it's so long ago. I don't know whether it was Esquimalt or whether it was View Royal, but someone turned it down. One of the municipalities. And I don't want to get on that too, because I'd like to see amalgamations. There's too damn many municipalities as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah. Well, I won't agree with you on that one, but I will agree with you on light rail. I mean, and that's the way things operate here. It's like the public wants light rail. I think the public still wants light rail.
And we have
a chance for a car to show us what it's going to be like, and somehow, just mysteriously, the offer gets turned down. We never even hear about it. We never know about it. This is, I mean, maybe I heard about it 15 years ago from you, but, it's crazy. And it's just, it's a symbol of how so much is wrong in the country, because the people who run the country don't give a damn about the people, the citizens.
Right. Well, last July 1st, we had a big display on the Gorge for Canada Day. And the amount of support that came to our display was unreal. I don't think I had more than 2 negative people the whole day that I was there.
And, you just had some pictures of light rail systems?
Yeah, we had our display up there showing what the vehicles look like and examples from other cities. And people said, why hasn't this happened? It's because there's been no political will to see it happen.
And in fact, there's been exactly the opposite.
Yes.
I mean, right now they're talking about building a new overpass at Mackenzie and Admirals, I guess. That's $100 million right there, I think, is the number they're talking about. We could have the line fully going 100% super line from Langford into downtown. You could even build a new rail bridge and throw that in for the $100 million price, but it's never even mentioned. The media won't mention it. Yeah, I mean...
Do you realize the highest subsidy is paid to the automobile?
Yes.
They get the highest subsidy of any form of transportation. But you'd be surprised at how many people don't realize that.
Because it's never mentioned in the media.
They don't want to mention it. You notice if there's improvement going to be made on the highway, there's no talk about negotiating a price for it or anything.
It's just wonderful.
They just go.
Let's do it.
They come up with, I heard they come up with a price of $15 million to do that upgrade on near Shawnigan Lake. I don't know whether that's fact or fiction. But when I go up there and I see blasting rock out, cutting trees down, that the fill, cover, and all the rest of it, for $15 million, I don't believe that.
Yeah.
I don't think it can be done for $15 million. It just doesn't make any sense. It's quite a distance, and there's a lot of blowing of rock out. That's not cheap to do.
But there's never money for.
But there's
rail.
never money for rail.
Yeah. Bill, we got a couple of minutes left. I mean, what do you want to say? What else can we say about light rail? What can people do? How can people make it happen? What can we do?
I think you're going to use every bit of your effort and contact the politicians at every level, municipal, provincial, federally. You got to get them to move on this. We can't continue to wait, and they procrastinate. This has to be done.
Yeah, it's really up to us, the people of this city. We've got to somehow, I mean, I don't know how we can, if we want it. I mean, if we don't want it, then of course we shouldn't have it. But if we do want it, then our politicians should be making it happen for us. Instead, we do want it, but the politician's job is to make sure that nothing ever happens. And who are they working for? I mean, federally, provincially, municipally. There's nothing on this.
They should be working for the voter.
Yeah.
It's a shame. I mean, we got a lovely city, generally speaking, but it could be so much better
Yeah. And we have to.
and much more lively and friendly
Yeah.
and safe. All these things are so important, and we're ignoring them.
Yes, yes, and light rail is a part of that. With the safety issue, I mean, we can certainly deal with that as well. I mean, they deliberately create poverty, which creates problems in our society, and you have to wonder why that's happening. Is there a plan of some kind in place that people can see that says, here, for this amount of money, we can start to make something happen starting tomorrow or next week? Is there any document that?
Well, BC Transit, as I said, they did this study, not that long ago, and they can implement these things in phases, as what was originally planned, I believe.
And what was the study about?
On light rail and implementing it in from downtown, or your terminus from maybe at the cruise ship terminal
Right.
into town. I mean, you could do it in phases. They've done it in other cities.
Yeah. Somehow, you don't even know how to make it start to happen, but it's got to happen. It's just one more
People
thing.
have to get busy and get onto their politicians at every level. Tell them, we need this, and we need it now. We've had enough delays, years and years and years of studies and delays. For what purpose? When this is a practical solution that's facing us,
Yeah,
and we're missing the boat.
It's. I mean, I think they just don't want it. They want us driving cars, and they don't and buying cars, burning oil. That's our job. They won't let us have a more progressive system. Bill McDonald, thank you very much. The Greater Victoria Light Rail Society, 30 years of fighting a very, very just fight against really overwhelming odds.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate the time here.
Yeah. And folks, we can all do something about this if we're interested. I know everybody's busy and it's difficult to get through to the politicians and the media. It doesn't work for us, but this is something that is important. I hope your website address will be, or something will be running, and people can get in touch with you. Thanks for watching Citizens Forum.